Before you guys start asking questions, I just want to acknowledge the scouting department for the Raiders and all the hard work they put in, really over almost the past year at this point. Really, the draft process every year starts in May. And so, this is really their Super Bowl, the college scouts in particular, but the scouting assistants and the pro scouts, they've done a phenomenal job this year. And, with our first full year working together, it's been a great process. And Brian and Brandon Hunt and Anthony Patch to the mix, John Stiegel, some new names to the Raiders too has been great. And so I just wanted to acknowledge them and be grateful for their contributions. So with that, fire away.
Hey John, Ryan McFadden from ESPN. Have you guys received any calls regarding the top pick? And is it safe to say at this point that you guys are going to stand pat and pick with the first overall selection?
We've gotten a few calls, and those teams know where they stand right now.
John, what did you learn about yourself where you're maybe last year through the process that adjusted maybe how your approach this year?
It's great having him here, and that's been a big help. But, to rely on the people probably around me more than I felt like I did last year. I think I tried to do too much last year, not knowing everybody in the building, having my own vision that I was trying to teach to people about the way that we wanted to do it, how we wanted to build it, the kind of person we were looking for. And I think it's always important to really have great people around you and trust and empower them to do their jobs, to support you as well as they can. And it's really not about me. It's about the team and the Raiders and the best decisions. And I'm just very grateful to have a great group of people around me, like I acknowledged to start today.
John, you guys in free agency signed guys from good programs, good teams, successful guys. When you're not going to a college draft, how important is that compared to other factors that you're looking at a guy, whether it be talent or ability, that they come from winning programs?
Well, it's really probably the global profile of the player. And certainly there's some programs that we all know do it really well right now. I mean, they're the ones that you see playing in the playoffs and the national championships every year. And I think we can all understand that those programs, they have a way about building, teaching, coaching, developing players, which is really helpful. But, we're not going to discredit anybody from a small school or, a program that maybe hasn't been as successful. So there's a lot that goes into the whole process, but it's certainly something that we talk about.
This is for both of you guys. We live in interesting times right now. This time last year, Fernando Mendoza was quarterback that transferred from Cal to Indiana. Not a lot of people had him on the radar for the top pick overall. When you go back and look at it, Fernando, when he lands on your radar, how much do you weigh what happened at Cal to what happened at Indiana? Is it equally important? And where was he this time last year for you guys?
Well, I'm going to kick it to Starkey so he gets don't tell him where he was, though.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of prospects in this draft where anymore, especially with the transfer portal, the NIL world, that our evaluations, they start the moment these kids get to college. So, all of these players, you have to be aware of them a little bit earlier because you have to know the sources that you can talk to learn about these prospects. So, with any of these guys that have transferred, I mean, we're exhausting every resource at every school they've been, where they started, where they transferred to, and the evaluations, they're constantly evolving right up until the draft. Like, we're still getting information on all these. We're still talking about the information we've had, that we've accumulated. So it's taking all that information in and then forming our impression, our opinion of these players. And we're still having conversations right now about a lot of these guys, trying to hone in on what our impression of them is. So it's kind of a never-ending cycle once they start college, especially in today's world.
I was wondering if you walk us through maybe your process when it's actually you're on the clock. I know you have your board, like, hey, this is our next guy. What is the discussion? What is the actual process like of deciding, okay, this is where we're actually going to go? And maybe how different is it than it was last year when it was your first time on the job, and maybe figuring out where how you want to do that?
I think it starts with, are we going to make the pick? And if there's a player that stands out that we feel it's not worth losing, it's not worth even picking up the phone, then we'll just make the pick. But if it's a player that we're not as excited about, or there's a group of players that we would love to pick from, and we can get value for that, then we're certainly open to listening to that. So I think when you go on the clock, unless you're super convicted that you're making the pick, you kind of just sit there and wait for a little bit and see if your phone will ring. And sometimes you can get really good trade offers that maybe you didn't expect, and other times your phone doesn't ring, so then you just pick. But we try to be open-minded. We try to give ourselves as much time, as allotted to make the best decision for the Raiders. And, we traded back twice in the second round last year and accumulated a bunch of what we thought was really good draft capital, and we'd be open to doing that again.
Scout at heart, like, did you scout yourself of how you went through that process, how you performed, and how the communication all worked after last year?
Yeah, I wrote a lot of things down that I learned in my first year, things that I screwed up in my first year, and we're not going to change too much, but we've got some new faces in that draft room with us this year, and we've got a fancy new draft room too that I think it's state of the art. I think it's the best in the NFL. I don't think that's up for discussion. So. We got to make sure that all the screens operate the right way. The magnets are a thing of the past for the Raiders now, and we were just up there discussing before we came down here the right way to lay it out and get all the information up there. And so that's a process that we're working through right now, but we'll have that thing ready to rock on Thursday next week.
What are some of the intangibles that you would look at in players that might set them apart that you think would make them a good fit for this team?
Yeah, it's a great question. We talk so much about it. They got to love football. They need to be great teammates. That's really something that is important to Clint and to myself and to really all of us up here is being a great player, person, teammate to the guy next to you, disciplined, accountable. I mean, a lot of the buzzwords, but and a passion to play for the Raiders. I think one of the really cool things about free agency that we just saw is that we had a lot of people that wanted to come here, a lot of really good players that were playing in good programs that sought us out and wanted to be a Raider, and through the draft process, we've certainly felt that this year too.
In terms of drafting best player, best athlete available versus maybe a position need, how much with what you were able to do in free agency does that impact maybe you guys on draft night when it comes down to maybe some later rounds?
Go ahead.
Yeah, to me with the draft, it always starts with the value of the player and the best players available. I do think that the component of team need can come into play if you've got multiple players graded at the same position when you're trying to break a tie, if you've got similar grades on a player. But I think you always want to stay true to your board. I mean, we've got a big staff, our college department, pro guys are involved now. We've got analytics departments involved. We've got a lot of people, a lot of information and data we're gathering to build this board. So we want to hold true to the work that's been put in. But, at some point when the grades are awash, then those other factors start to come into play with the decision.
John, what has been a Hoopag's input into all this?
A lot, in a short amount of time, but a lot. And we had a great set of draft meetings with Clint and his entire staff last week. I thought it was well laid out by Starkey and the guys, and we got a lot of valuable information, not only on the way we're trying to run things and how guys fit into the systems that we're trying to put into place, but really, really quality evaluations of them as well. And I think that's really important as we put a team together. It's not about what Starkey and I think or the personnel department thinks or what the coaching staff thinks. It's about, right now the 10 best players for the Raiders. And last week was a productive week working towards that.
John, when you go through your process, I know last week you met with coaches, your board, is the hay pretty much in the barn right now? Or, I know you can get a security briefing or whatever, but for pretty much is your board established for where you guys are?
I would say that the players are in generally the right spot. And we still have conversations to have. We have a medical meeting tonight. We have a security meeting tomorrow night. And, like Starkey said before, we're going to take all the information we can, and they're small tinkers at this point, but there still are discussions that we're having and information coming in that we have to factor into the total evaluation of the player.
You've said a couple times that alluded to the fact that in an ideal world you'd have a young quarterback, maybe not necessarily rush him out there right away, give him some time to grow. Well, what kind of informed that philosophy? Why is it something you believe in?
Can you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood.
You've said a couple times that, in an ideal world, a young or rookie quarterback you're more patient with. You don't necessarily want to throw them out there right away. I'm just wondering, where did that philosophy come from? Why do you think that's the right way to go?
It's a hard position to play, and there's a lot to learn beyond throwing a football and being a good teammate. A lot of these guys, they live their entire life in shotgun. They don't huddle. So, you really got to teach some of these guys how to run a huddle and how to break a huddle and how to get under center and call a cadence, because you see so many of them clap now too. So it's far beyond just learning a playbook, which in and of itself is hard enough. And I think when you can be patient, and we all understand there's not a ton of patience in the job that we chose here, but if you can find some level of patience and put people in positions when they're ready, that's the best way forward. And, you know, we've got to remind ourselves some of that sometime too, is because we all want to see the young guys play. We want to see them play well, but we don't want to put anybody out there, regardless of the position, who's not ready.
We have a long way to go before it gets to a decision on that. But do you believe that it'll be, in terms of the quarterback, playing a young quarterback to start off with, do you think that'll be philosophically based or merit based when you get through training camp and get down to making a decision?
Well, ultimately, this is a meritocracy, and the best guy will play. It's just really hard to play really well at a young age. But we've seen plenty of quarterbacks do it recently. And, you know, how that goes going forward here, obviously we added Kirk, we have Aiden, and, you know, we'll see how it goes. But, you know, the best man will play.
John, how do you feel about Darian Porter going to a year 2, and do you feel like there's a need to add another quarterback into the room to kind of compete for that outside starter quarterback job?
I was happy with the way that Darian finished the season last year. He's had a great offseason so far. He's been here a lot, and we've seen the growth in him physically. And, you know, I think you always expect guys to make a pretty big jump between years 1 and 2. And, you know, I'm proud of him for the way he competed last year and the way he's taken and attacked the offseason. And, you know, to the other part of your question, I think every room we want to add competition to. And if we feel like adding another corner or another linebacker is in the best interest of us, we'll do it. But we want everybody to earn their spot in the starting lineup.
And just from the evaluation of this draft class, just what are your thoughts on probably like the safety class and the group of safeties in this class in particular? I know Kubiak mentioned how that's an area on this team that he would like to add depth to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 3 safeties on the roster right now too, so it's just a math equation right there. We need a few more. I think it's a good safety class, and from top to bottom, I mean, there's some guys that you would expect probably to go in 1, and all the way through, you know, to day 3, there's some quality players there. And I think historically, if you look for the right things and you find the right guy, that's a spot where you can find quality players maybe later in the draft. Maybe there's some teams that don't value them as much, but overall, obviously, it's something we've got to attack, and I'm glad the class looks like the way it does.
We always talk about the draft picks, but what about the undrafted free agents? How many do you think this roster can carry?
Well, again, it'll be who the best players are, and if we're doing the math right now, we've got 66 players in the roster and 10 picks, so we'll have 15 undrafted free agents right now. And our scouting department's going to do a great job of finding the right guys at the right positions and guys that will compete and are about the right things and have a chance to make the roster and contribute.
Your personal style in your draft room, John, are you collaborative? Do you want guys coming to you, or when you're on the clock, do you want them to leave you alone and you'll talk to them if you need them?
No, super collaborative. I mean, I think we all know each other pretty well too, and Starkey and Thuzy and B Hunt and those guys, they know when to say something and they know when everything's in order. And I think the biggest thing is just to have a calm environment. You know, I think we've all seen movies where it's chaotic and all that. I've not been in a draft room where it's like that, and I wouldn't function well in that. But when you're prepared and you know what you want and you trust your process, I think it's pretty easy to run that route.
Ryan, this question is for you. Obviously, there's so much attention on the number 1 pick overall, but how much more pride and attention to detail do you and your staff put into making sure that you hit on those day 3 picks even more so than the obvious number 1 pick?
Yeah, I think we put the same amount of attention into every player on the board as we work through that, because those picks matter. Those players make it. I don't think that there's any different level of detail that we put in the pick number 1 than we put through any of our 4th round picks or put into the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round picks. We're kind of analyzing all the players on the board under the same microscope. So all those picks are important because you never know. You know, there's plenty of 1st round picks that don't make it, and there's plenty of 7th round, 6th round players that do. So it's all about us evaluating the character of the player first, and then evaluating the skill set and how they fit into specifically what we're looking for and what we're asking those positions to do. So we feel like we can find value all through the draft, so we put a lot of emphasis on all those picks.
Brian, how does your evaluation of picking for need versus best player available, how does that your philosophy mesh with John's?
I think we see it very similar. I mean, you know, we worked together in Denver several years ago, and we've had conversations over the years, and I think that's, you know, part of the reason I was so excited to come with this opportunity to work with Spy, because we view a lot of the things very similarly, and you know, he'll tell me what he thinks. Obviously, he's the boss. He'll tell me what he thinks when he disagrees, and I'm not afraid to tell him if I see something differently.
He is not.
So I think that's, he values that, and I value the relationship, and there's a trust there that we can have open, honest communication, because there's going to be, when you eval a player, it's a long process, and everyone that evals them has a little bit of a different experience. So I may watch different games than he watched during the eval, so we may see the player differently, and you got to have those conversations to kind of find what our truth is on the player. So I think you got to have people willing to speak up and give their opinion, and then work it out.
Is there one position group that you see as being particularly deep or that you're particularly excited about in this year's draft?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, you always want to talk about the depth of the draft class. I mean, it usually takes a couple years to really figure that out. But I will say that it does feel the safety group has been mentioned. It feels like it's a good safety group. But there's a good group of offensive linemen. There's a good group of receivers. There's some position groups that are pretty deep in the class. That there's players that should have opportunity all through the draft. So there's good players this year for sure.
How different is this process having the number one pick in the past? I know there's 7 rounds to prepare for, but just first round, where you've had to play out scenarios of, if this happens, then this, if this, then this. Like, you kind of control everything that you want to control at the top. How different is that process?
Well, a lot less energy spent on, hypotheticals. And, we were just talking before we came down here. There's only one team that can get the exact person that they want. And we have that option to us available this year, if we so choose. And, so outside of that, it's not much different, Adam. I mean, we used to spend, would we do this? If these guys were there, would we trade down? Would we ask for a premium? We only have to do that one time this year with the first round pick. And then you get to the second round and it's just like it was, Do you want to trade up? Do you want to stay? Do you want to trade back? And what would it cost? What would we be willing to give up or acquire in order to do it?
6 picks in the top 175. I know we talked about last year you guys were aggressive trading down. Could you see a scenario where maybe you could use some of that surplus to move up, back into the second round, et cetera, back into the third round?
Open to all options, Vinny. I didn't think that we were going to trade down twice in the second round last year, and we felt like the trade offers that we got were just too good to pass up. And if someone's looking to bail and we think that there's a really high quality player we can go get, we'll certainly consider it. And if someone's offering us too much to not pick, then we'll do that too.
You told us last year your son basically insisted you better get Ashton or you were in trouble. So is he wearing a Mendoza jersey secretly at night?
I have not seen any of those. It's usually just the Ashton jersey. I meant to mention that before. We have medical, we have security, and we have Jack and Tommy Spytek who haven't weighed in yet. So that's this weekend, and then we'll put the final draft board together.
You mentioned last year that you covet your offensive linemen. What do you look about this offensive line class that you're looking at, and how does it feel? Like, how do you guys feel about the offensive line with Rick Dennison and his experience that he brings to the table?
Well, super excited to have Rico here. He's super accredited. I think he's got 4 Super Bowl rings, and it seems like everywhere he goes, they run the football and they protect the quarterback, and that's a pretty good place to start with an offensive line. In terms of the draft this year, I'm happy that we added the guys we did, but I've never been anywhere where you don't feel like you've got too many offensive linemen. They're just such a hard position to acquire, and whether it's in the draft, it's almost impossible in free agency. It feels like, especially at certain positions, and just because we've added certain guys through free agency doesn't mean that we won't be looking for offensive linemen too. I'm on record as saying they're sexy as hell, and I stand by that.
John, what does Kirk Cousins bring to the organization, to the quarterback room, and why did he make sense to you?
Well, he's played really good football in this league for a long time, and he went through obviously a challenging time early in his career. Ends up in the same draft class as the second overall pick, and somehow he comes out of that on top. And then he's been able to do what he's done at different stops along the way. There's a high level of maturity there. There's an understanding of Clint's offense that I think will help Aiden and any other quarterbacks that join the group. He's won. He's hardworking. He's detailed. He's smart. He's been a great teammate places he's been. We've all seen the videos of him with his teammates. Kirk Chains, is that what they call him? I can't remember, but Kirko Chains. Yeah, sorry, Kirk, I screwed that up. Anytime you have a veteran quarterback in a room that's played at a high level that you believe can still play well and play at a high level, I think that helps everybody, especially the coaching staff, sleep a little better at night. And again, it's another one of those positions where you can't have too many good players in that room.
Can you speak about the development of Jack Fesh and Dante Thornton over this offseason?
Yeah, two guys that have spent a lot of time in Las Vegas when they could be elsewhere. And, I see a growth in maturity, a hunger that, they maybe their rookie year didn't go the way that they wanted it to. And two guys that are determined to make the most of the opportunity that they have out in front of them.
We only saw them obviously in game time, but what did you guys see from those two guys in particular, like in practice, film study, and all that, just to learn a little bit more about who they are?
Well, they're both physically gifted. They're both big, and they work really hard, and it's really important to them. And they seek people out. They look for answers. They look for ways that they can get better. They're always trying to learn, and they work their tails off. It means a lot to both of those guys. And, I'll stand by guys like that. Guys that are willing to lay it on the line and exhaust themselves to get better and be vulnerable and ask questions and take feedback and take, criticism in a sense. I think you want guys on your team like that because they're going to get better.
When you guys are evaluating college quarterbacks, in Fernando's case, there's RPO and pre-snap decision making and coaching. That's kind of the way college football is going these days. When you guys in the NFL have to evaluate that and maybe make the leap of faith that transition is going to be successful at the NFL level, how much of that is can you tell just watching tape or talking through it with the prospect and trying to get an idea of where they are in terms of adaptability and learnability for the NFL game?
It's certainly challenging. Not a lot of college offenses look like NFL offenses right now, but I think you're looking beyond just what that can do. Every scheme is a little bit different. Every system is a little bit different. So there's always going to be things to learn. So are they smart? Can they process a lot of information quickly? Do they make good decisions with the football? Are they tough? Are they good teammates? Obviously, can they throw the ball at a level that's required to play quarterback in the NFL? Are they athletic? Can they improvise, or do they have to play in the pocket all the time? There's lots of things in the scouting world, in the scouting systems that you can pick up on. But I think when you get a chance to spend time with them, like we have with a lot of players in this draft, you start to learn a little bit more about how they work, how they think, how they learn. And we lean heavily on the coaches with that, with the meetings at the combine, in the building, Zooms that we're able to do. And usually the coaches have a pretty good feel like this guy learns it really well. And I feel like, he'll be able to grab and hold on to and remember, and then we can build and build and build.
I watched last season as the both of you stood on the sideline for every single game, watching from that first-person field view. How does that kind of help you shape your experiences with this team, and also how you look forward to building a team that can have success from what you've seen when you're on the field with the group?
Well, I think we both answered this. I'll go first. I don't like being confined to a press box or to a small area. I don't like sitting during football games. It feels unnatural to me. I like being in the arena. I miss that about my playing days, and so to be on the field and kind of feel some of the emotions and the highs and the lows, they're fulfilling to me. And I just love being around the guys and having them feel like I got some skin in the game too. And I think you can learn a lot about people in those moments too. And I think hopefully they can learn a lot about me. But it feels unnatural to me to sit up top and be away from it, even though sometimes that's where I end up. But
yeah, for me it was invaluable, especially being my first season here and the opportunity to, like Spy said, to be invested with the players on game day, be down there on sideline, see those sideline interactions, be able to be more involved with them. You get to see who people really are, in those intense situations. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it really brings. I feel like it allows you to create a different relationship with the players and a better understanding of who they are and what they're going through.
Brian, a lot of GMs in this league don't want to be challenged, and John does. He's not afraid to challenge Tom, but he's not afraid to be challenged. How much is it valuable to you to work for somebody that values your brain and doesn't want a yes guy?
Oh, I think it's an incredible opportunity that I have here with the relationship I have with Spy, with the interaction I've been able to have with the ownership group. Like it's an organization that is very forward thinking and is highly motivated to be a championship organization. And I think that we're fortunate here that the people in charge, they understand that you need to hear your people, you need to take input, you need to take different perspectives, and plenty of my suggestions are like, nah, we're not going to do that, but that's fine. I don't take it personal, and it's been It's a great opportunity because for me, it's been an opportunity to grow, to be able to be involved in so much and to be exposed to so many different things and to be able to find my voice a little bit more too and express myself a little bit better. So it's been a great opportunity here.
The UFL is going on right now. How much evaluation how much time do you guys spend with the UFL and maybe find a player or two that might be worth taking a look at?
Well, we watch football whenever it's on. It's one of the requirements of the job. And we've got a great pro department with Ben and Jordy and Jordan that, whether it's the UFL, CFL, the IPP program, if there's football going on and there's players that we think can help us, they're watching it. And they do an awesome job with it.
All right. Thank you guys.
You want to end on a UFL question? Didn't have that on my bingo card. What's that?